Hello and welcome to Practical Knife Reviews. Today we're looking at an assisted opening knife, one that's actually been discontinued, and this particular knife has a little bit of a story behind it. This, as I'm sure many of you know, as this was a popular knife before it was discontinued, is the SOG Flash 2. Got some bird noises out here. Anyway, the SOG Flash 2 was a pretty popular knife from SOG. As you can see, it's an assisted opening knife. Nice assist on it. Not that I like assisted knives, personally I don't. I also don't like serrated knives, and this one is serrated. So why, Henry, do you have an assisted opening serrated knife if you don't like assisted opening knives and serrated knives? Well, it's funny you should ask. Ma, where did we find this knife?
In the parking lot of our local cross-country skiing park.
Yeah, we went for night skiing one time. This is 8 years ago or something like that. It was a while ago. It was when I was in high school. We go to the park to go skiing, nighttime, so it's dark. We put our headlamps on. We put down our skis to put our skis on, and this knife is just sitting there in the icy parking lot like this. No idea how long it had been there, but needless to say, now it is mine. But if you look closely, you can see there's some rust here that I haven't bothered to really buff out, despite the fact that this is a stainless steel knife. I believe this is AUS 8 stainless steel, which is a fine stainless steel. It's quite all right. This must have been in the parking lot for a little while anyway, because it's got rust on it despite being a stainless steel. So yeah, I wouldn't have bought this knife if it hadn't been free, but it was free. So it's just a light assisted opening knife, partially serrated. As I said, I forgot to grab the rope, but we'll go back and do that at the end.
Oh, I see rope right there.
Oh, right here?
No, right here.
Where are you
Big
looking?
chunk.
Oh yeah, I see some rope. What is that there for? Well, it's there for us to test the rope cutting. Okay, we'll do that after we test it on paper and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, this is discontinued. I'm sure you can still find it online on eBay or wherever you decide to look for it if you want it. It was really popular. But yeah, it's since been replaced with another knife, also called the Flash, but looks very different than this one. Anyway, let's see how sharp it is. And this is why
it's better if you move just a hair back out of the
Sure. Yeah, this is why I don't like serrated knives. Right here is where I would want to do most of my cutting. And while you can cut with the serrations through paper, that's not really what the serrations are made for. So to test the sharpness, I have to cut way up front here, which is not as, I guess, ergonomic for me anyway. I'm not very good at cutting with the front edge of the knife because I just never do it. So you can see, once I get it, it's sharp. It's not blazing sharp, but it's sharp enough. It feels sharp. But yeah, basically your non-serrated part is right up on the front of the knife. Now, if I was designing a knife, this is an aside, not relevant to this knife in particular, but if I was designing a knife and you told me you have to put serrations on it, I'd put the serrations up here and leave the fine edge down here for working on wood, as opposed to what is usually done. But anyway, let's see how the serrations do on cardboard. Really easy. Very easy. Let's try a different direction. Very easy. Let's see how the fine portion does. Not quite as easy. That actually got caught up pretty bad right there. So yeah, the fine portion. Well, I do have a fine edge on it, so I don't know. I guess I just don't have it as sharp as I could. Okay, let's look at an apple next. In case this is your EDC knife and you want to peel an apple. So the handle here it's kind of contoured in a way that doesn't make it the most comfortable for a reverse grip. And I'm not able to choke up here because if you try to cut with the serrations, you can, but you leave a weird pattern in the flesh. And cutting up towards the front here is not quite as easy, in my opinion, just because of where on the blade you're getting at. But as you can see, it's doing a fine job. It's just not not the most comfortable for me. Again, a lot of you might be fine with it, but not the most comfortable for me to be trying to do all of my cutting with the fine portion right at the front here. Now, let's look at how this does on rope. And I'm going to compare it against another SOG knife, which we've done a review on previously. So you see, well, the rope is here.
Yeah, okay, well, it shows up better when you're back further.
Anyway, this is the SOG Aegis FL, the $10 SOG knife that you can buy in a clamshell pack at SMKW. And you can see it has a fine edge. So we're going to just compare how well this cuts through the rope with the fine edge. Where's the end? That's a turn. There's the end. We'll see how well it cuts with the fine edge versus the serrated edge. You want to hold that with your free hand?
Sure.
Just grab that so I've got some tension on it, because if I fold it over, it'll cut through no matter what. I want to do it with tension. See it?
Yep.
Okay, that was easy with the serrations. Let's try the comparison knife to see how well that goes. Yeah, it cut through just fine, but there definitely was a little bit more resistance with the fine edge compared to the serration. You really just cut right through it with no problem at all. Okay, then the last thing we're going to look at before we go inside and take a closer up look is how this works on wood. Stay there. Okay, here, it didn't stay there. Here we have pine, which is a softwood, and you see again, you can do this with the serrations and you can get pretty nice curls, but it does want to get caught up once you get a little bit deeper because of the serrations. So if you want to do a lot of feathers, you're pretty much left with using the fine portion of the blade, and it's pretty decent. This is pine, very soft, but you can see we're still getting caught up there a little bit. And I think that one of the issues with that is that using only this front portion here, you have a very small space in order to pull across, whereas when I use this, I start here and I a lot of the time will come down, so I'm using the length of the blade when making feathers. Okay, so that's pine. Here's red oak, which is the hardest wood in our forest, and again, can use the serrations for this. And you've got feathers. They're not very nice, but they're there. You can use the tip, and you can get in a bit more shallow and get the quality of the feathers is better if I can dig in. But again, the issue that I'm having is I like to use the full length of the blade and that transition from fine edge to serrated edge. And again, this is very subjective. So you see the quality of those feathers is better from the fine edge, but not being able to use the whole length of the blade does trip me up personally a bit, but for you it might not be any issue at all. And I guess the last thing I'll mention, just so I don't forget when we're inside, is how the locking mechanism works. It's this little slide lock. You pull the slide lock back and then it folds. You've also got a secondary closed lock since it's assisted opening, which I like. That's one of the reasons I don't like assisted opening knives, is I'm always worried it's going to open in my pocket. This, at least you can lock it closed. So now safety's off, flips open, lock is on, unlock. So that's the SOG Flash 2 discontinued model. We'll take another look at it inside for all of the specs and whatnot in just a second. We're back on Practical Knife Reviews, still looking at the SOG Flash 2, the one that was found in a parking lot. And I'll give you a closer look up at those little rust spots I mentioned earlier. As I said, I believe this is AUS 8 stainless steel. So for there to be rust spots on it, it was probably in that parking lot for a little while. Of course, also keeping in mind that the roads are really salty as well in the wintertime up here. But yeah, you can see we've got this partially serrated blade. Close it off the screen so I don't cut myself. And you can see assisted opening. All right, Ma, why don't you talk about it while I get some measurements, since I did all the talking earlier.
She kind of thought the serrations worked really well on the cardboard, even though you don't like them, or the positioning of them.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I don't like serrations, I'm definitely not disputing the fact that they have a place. They work really good on rope, and they worked good on the cardboard. Better than the fine edge of the other SOG. You want to grab that for me? Of the comparable SOG, which I know is just as sharp, if not even sharper, the serrations on this one worked better on the rope, and I'd say at least as well as this one on the cardboard, though we didn't test this one on the cardboard today, but you can check out our review that we did of this knife for seeing how it did against cardboard. Huh. Interesting. Looks like there's a roll on the edge here that I didn't see before. Anyway, that's not important now. The important thing is that this is 4.5 inches long closed. It is 8 inches long overall, maybe 8 1/8 inches long overall, with a 3.5 inch long cutting length, right around 2 inches of fine, and 1.5 inches of serration. Yeah. It's quite light, so we'll test the weight of it now. Ma, why don't you say more about, the looks and all of that, your just overall impressions of this knife, as well as perhaps how funny you thought it was that we found it in the parking lot.
Well, what I most noted is I actually like it better than the other SOG because of the blade shape, even despite the serrations.
89 grams, 3.1 ounces. As I said, it's very, very light. It's just got a, plastic handle. Anyway, Ma, you keep going with whatever final impressions that you have before we wrap this up. I mean, the knife overall. You've seen...
It's light, it's easy to carry. I mean, it's not anything that's cumbersome.
Would you recommend people picking this up if they could get a reasonable price on it online? For
How much was that one in comparison to the one you have?
As I said, this has been discontinued for a little while now, and so I don't know what these were going for when they were new. Based on just some other comparable SOG knives from that period of time, because SOG has really upped their game in the last about 1.5 years. They've come out with a lot of new models and redesigned some old models using better steels and whatnot. SOG's really upped their game in the last 1.5 years or so, but previous to that, I knocked this out again. Come on, light. There we go. Previous to that, I had been, looking at their website and their stuff on some of the retailers, though I don't remember what this was going for. My guess would have been that this would have been like a $35 or $40 knife versus this is a $10 knife.
Yeah, see, and I don't like the blade shape on the silver one as much.
Yeah, I mean, I like the overall shape of this. This is much more of a Henry-shaped blade. As viewers know, we like our Puko style blades, and while this is not really a Puko because it's a drop point rather than a flat back, it's much more reminiscent of that shape of blade than this, which is almost like a harpoon point. But yeah, I'm just not a big fan of serrations, though, of course, as I said, they definitely do have a place and they work. I'm not a big fan of them, and if I was designing it, I would put them up here. Like, I'd leave a little bit of fine right at the tip, then have serrations, and then have a fine section down here for working with wood and whatnot. But, that's just me. This is all subjective. But let's say somebody was able to get this for $30, $35, $40, which is probably around what this would have retailed for when it was still in production. Would you recommend people to pick this up?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty nice knife.
All right, that's her final verdict. Any other words that you want to have on it before we close this up, Ma?
Nope.
All right, and then that's our look at the discontinued SOG Flash 2 found in a parking lot. We'll see you again on Practical Knife Reviews with another review very soon.